Good afternoon, everybody. I'll apologize in advance. I've got a little bit of a laryngitis going on, so it might be a little difficult to understand what I'm saying. My name is Jordan. I run a series online called This Week in Linux. It's a YouTube-based video series I've been doing for about 8 or 9 months now, and have had a relative amount of success with it. So I thought I would come here today and share with you a little bit that I've learned about doing video editing using Kdenlive. There's a common myth, a common misconception that in order to have decent video editing, or basically anything at all, you have to pay for it, or you have to go with something like a Mac OS X or Final Cut Pro, any of those really expensive, elaborate pieces of software. Linux comes with, or has the ability to have so many very easy to install, very easy to use applications that can do some wonderful things with a load of very advanced features that are not terribly difficult to get used to using. So today we're going to take a look, like I said, at Kdenlive. If you are using any modern major distro, Ubuntu, Fedora, Arch Linux, OpenSUSE, any of the, I've probably left out a dozen, but it is generally very easy to get it installed. If you go to their website, they've got installation instructions, and most of the major distros have the most up-to-date version, which is 0.7.7.1. That said, next week there will be a new version releasing. Not going to be talking about that because there are some major changes to it, and I have not had a chance to look at them yet. But let's go ahead and just get started with it. Like I said, if you go to any major distro, you just type on Ubuntu apt-get install Kdenlive, it'll pull down everything you need. But this is the default Kdenlive interface. It looks a little bit daunting at first, but it's really not all that bad. And one thing that I will tell you that makes it a little easier for me is get rid of the things that you're not going to use. One thing I hear very frequently is Kdenlive is buggy, it crashes a lot. Why does it crash so much? I honestly don't know why it crashes so much. It all depends on what you're doing. The undo history is one of the worst things in my opinion. One of the things that causes it to crash quite frequently for me. So I always just close it. If I'm going to undo something, I make sure to save first. That's one key thing to keep in mind. Save and save often. It does have an auto-recover feature, but you want to make sure that you are saving just in case. Because I don't know how many times somebody has spent hours and hours creating a project, forgot to hit the save button, it crashes, and you've just lost everything. So, as soon as you start out, for now example, I'm going to hit File Save just to make sure that I've got a copy of whatever I'm doing, which is nothing. But we'll just go ahead and go to my desktop and go into the OLF directory. And we'll create a project and call it OLF. And there we go, I have a project saved. So now anything that I do to this project, if Kdenlive crashes on me, we are good to go. We just open it back up and it will say, we found files that can be recovered, do you want to recover them? So we're good to go. Now we've gotten rid of the undo history. I also like to move the effect list around just because it's taking up unnecessary space, trying to make the clip monitor, the project monitor, as large as possible. So I'm just moving some things around here. You can feel free to experiment with the interface as you like, just to see what you're comfortable with. The parts that I find I use most often are the effects list, the project tree, the effects, these 4 tabs over here that you may or may not you should be able to see them, and the timeline at the bottom. And depending on what you're doing, you may have several tracks, you may only have one. For today, we're probably going to be using 1 to 2 tracks, so not anything terribly complicated. So basically right here we've got a relatively easy to use interface. You've got your project monitor on the upper left side, which is wanting to open new files. On the right hand side you've got the clip monitor where you can see live what it is that you're editing. And at the bottom is your timeline, which is live updating exactly what it is that your video is going to look like. So at this point you want to add videos, images, music, whatever you want to start working on your first video. You can either, like we saw there, double click in this project tree area. You can hit this little button up here which kind of looks like a film strip to add clips, to add color clips, slideshows, lots and lots and lots of things there. Or you can go into a directory that has videos in it and just drag them in. So let's say, for example, I'm going to take these videos I made at the aquarium and I'm going to drag them into the project. There we go, we're ready to start editing. Now if I want to take this 45-second clip and start making changes to it, I just drag it to one of the top lines down here at the bottom. These are the video tracks. You'll notice if we scroll on down, these bottom couple of tracks are a different color. Those are intended for audio only. Yes, those are intended for audio only. You can use audio in a video track, but it's always best to keep things separate. It makes it easier just to keep track of what you're doing. So, back over at this, we've got one video in the top track, and we are ready to start making changes to it. if I were to hit play in the project monitor, it will start playing the video that I'm about to create. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. There we go. And this is live, showing you exactly what the project would look like if I hit render right now. If I hit render right now, I would have a new video, whatever type of video you want to have. Now let's just say, for example, we get down here to the middle somewhere. Oh, that shark doesn't look quite right. I want to cut this part out entirely. So what I'm going to do at that point is either go up to clip, nope, not clip, sorry, I always do the keyboard shortcut, so go to timeline, go to cut clip, and that will make a cut exactly where you are in the timeline. Now you'll notice on the right hand side of that it says Shift plus R. That's what I always use. It saves a load of time. So if I hold Shift and hit R, it puts a little line right here. Hard to see at this resolution, but there are two separate clips here, and they can be moved around by clicking and dragging. So for example, if you wanted to reverse the order of your clips, if for example you wanted to take the end and put it at the beginning, just drag things around, move it to wherever you want it to be. I normally do this with the mouse, so apologies for that. Anyway, so now we've cut the clip, we've moved things around. Let's say, for example, you were recording a concert and you wanted to rearrange the order in which they sang the songs. You could make a cut at the beginning of a song, a cut at the end of the song, and just make your own DVD of the live performance, if you were so inclined. But yeah, at this point, if I wanted to cut out a section, like I said, you make a Shift R to cut it, you make a Shift R in a second place to cut it again, and then you can either right click and go to delete, or hit the delete key and it will remove it from your timeline. One thing you might want to make sure you do, keep something at every point in your timeline. Otherwise, you'll be playing the video, and then you go to black. Without fading out, without fading your audio, and it's kind of jumpy. And then it comes back in when it's ready to. So that, just as far as good filmmaking goes, make sure you do have something to cover up those spaces.
Can you pull mixed media into this now?
I'm sorry, mixed media?
Mixed media, like a JPEG in the middle of the
Absolutely. So that was coming eventually. I do have a, yes, a logo that was created for me. If I drag this in, by default, when you pull a JPEG, a PNG file, any sort of image, it turns it into a 5-second video clip. You can change the length of that. That actually gets into a lot more complicated stuff. But if I were to just drag it into the timeline, you'll see it puts a 5-second clip out here. And if I go to that part of the timeline by clicking on it, it will just show this image, for example, with no audio behind it. So that's definitely possible. Lots of different video formats, image formats. I haven't tried animated GIFs or anything, but I would say it's probably not outside the scope of it. Very easy to get your files into it and sort of do what you want to with it. Okay, so at this point, we've made a couple of cuts to this. We've moved some things around. Let's say you've taken your home video of your baby and you've cut out the part where he messed himself, and you just have the part where he's standing up and being cute and where he's falling down at the end. And you've got your video ready to go. When you're done, you hit render, and again, you might want to save before doing this, but yeah, I've not had it crash on me when rendering, so crossed fingers there. Select a format that you want to render to. In addition, you can select different website styles. For example, I do a lot of stuff on YouTube. I could select the YouTube 1280 by 720 preset to get a 720p video out of this. Alternately, you can just go use any one of the file rendering types. The two that I have the best luck with, as far as getting to YouTube, getting to Vimeo, to Vidler, to a dozen other video sites, I use MPEG-2 most frequently, or H.264. And those are just pretty commonly supported formats. The other thing to keep in mind, whatever sort of camera or media you've got, make sure that the quality that you're choosing here, each of these different lines is a different video and audio bit rate that it's going to use, the maximum amount of data that's being processed per second for that video. So for example, if I were to choose MPEG-2 200K, the default one selected here, it's going to look horrible. It's going to be blocky, it's going to sound bad, and it's just not going to be a good time for anybody. So I tend to choose something at least in the thousands of kilobits per second, just because you get slightly better quality. When I'm personally doing a video, I normally do at least 4,000 kilobits a second, just because, yeah, the higher the quality, the better the video is going to look and sound. So now that I've chosen that, you choose an output destination. I'm just going to type in desktop, and actually we'll put it in your left directory. You can choose this using the file chooser if you want to do so, entirely up to you. And when down at the bottom, select full project. If you choose selected zone, the little green area that's selected here will be all that gets rendered. So if you have a small section of your clip you just want to test out, you can do that. I'm jumping around, sorry. But once you have selected the video that you want to render, make sure you want full video, choose your resolution you want to export it at, and hit render. And then you wait for, hopefully not a terribly long amount of time. Apologies for that.
Would you like some water?
No, thank you. I've got a sinus thing, yeah.
Okay.
And that's taking a little bit too long. So we'll just avoid that for now. But that actually gives us a good excuse to try out the selected zone area. If I go back to render again and check selected zone instead, it's going to take this first few seconds that's highlighted in green and render that to the same file. Much faster. Yeah, like I said, if you're testing out different transitions or different effects, something that you just want to see, what does this one part of the video look like, you can select that little zone. And by the way, to select that zone, just so you know, select your area in the video wherever you want to be. This little bracket will select the beginning. You hit the bracket again, the other one, it selects the end, and now you've got a little green marker zone. This becomes your new selected zone. Alright, so that video did render. If I come down here to Untitled, we've got, what, 3 or 4 seconds? 3. Yeah. And that's, you have created your first video at that point. In an ideal situation, you would have done the full project. It would have taken a little bit longer. But that is creating a video. Now, if you want to merge 2 videos together, let's say you've taken videos of your baby over 6 days' time or over a year's time, and you want to make a whole collage of different videos, you can add those videos into your project tree and then just drag them into the timeline wherever you want them to be. This is pretty much comes down to an artistic style, however you want to lay it out, what video order you want, if you want to have little transitions to go between them or not. But basically right now I've taken the initial aquarium video and added a second one to it, so when I get to the end of this first one, it's going to have video defects, and then, yeah, that does happen on occasion, but the video is there and it is displaying. So now we've merged 2 different clips together. If you hit the render button again, you would be able to render the entire file, and yeah, all well and good. Now, one thing I would mention...
Jordan, the question.
Sorry, go ahead.
Do they have to be the same file type?
No, not the same file type. They don't have to be the same resolution. They don't have to be the same anything. Yes?
It looks like these 2 samples that you have MP4 files include audio.
Yes, they do.
But you've got a separate section for editing the audio. Is there?
That's if you wanted to include additional audio.
Okay, so you can't separate the audio from the video to work with it separately?
You can, but you don't necessarily have to. For example, if I right-clicked on any of this and say split audio,
okay,
it will split it out and put it on the first available audio track, but it keeps them grouped together. So you can start working on the audio, but you can also just add effects to the video itself. For example, if I right-clicked and went to audio effect, you can choose any one of these. Mute, for example, would get rid of the audio itself. And now if I go back and play it, we should have no audio. So, and of course that does bring us to the idea of adding effects, adding items to your videos themselves. When you click on that, where I've added the mute, you see we went to the effect stack now. That says what effects are actually in effect on the video. Right now we've got mute on it, so if I come down to the delete, the mute goes away. I can right-click on it again or go to effects list to select a new effect to put on. Yes, what's up?
Yes, if you just simply mute the audio, will that audio data still be in there, and is it possible to simply just delete the audio data altogether?
The changes you're making in the timeline actually don't affect the original video itself. It's only affecting the final product. If you mute the audio, it does not delete it from the stream. It leaves it in the project, but in the final product it will not have any audio data for that section. Now that said, you can, like we mentioned earlier, we can go in here and split the audio out, and if then you ungroup the 2 clips, right now we've got a video clip that has no audio on it and an audio clip. So for example, if you had a video and it was out of sync for some reason, that would be a good way to split it out, and you can move the audio around to fit whatever you want to do. Or you can just delete it out and it goes away entirely. So, I'm going to put it all back together. together. The undo does work on occasion, but I don't rely on it. So let's see, where were we? We're adding audio and video effects now. So by default on most distributions, there are quite a few audio and video effects included. As you see here, I'm over the video effects. There's a whole list of them available. I've not had a chance to use the majority of them because a lot of them are just for fun. They're doing distortions or adding dust or lines or speeding up, slowing down, things like that. Waving, vignetting. Yeah, the majority of the ones I've used have been to adjust the brightness, to adjust the gamma, even to do chroma key. But that's kind of a let's talk about that later topic. But for example, if I were to choose one, let's just say scratch lines. That adds the scratch line effect. Now before we're adding that, this is what the video looks like. It's a fish. After adding the effect, it's got little scratch lines on the video. So if you want to add a simulated aged effect, you can do that. Not a terribly common occurrence, but some people do like that effect, and there are a load of them. Yes? I'm sorry, I can't.
Rotate an arbitrary amount?
Let's go ahead and take a look at that. If I come in here and I select rotate and shear, you've got all of these different effects that you can change. You can rotate on the x-axis. Yeah, well, sort of. What you want to do at that point is rotate it and then zoom in just a little bit to get rid of the black bars, but yes, you could definitely do that. You can rotate on the y-axis, which doesn't actually work terribly well because you're rotating the blackness. You can animate it so it would spin, if you were so inclined. Yes, that's a slightly different one. But yeah, so there's a load of different things you can do with that. In addition, you can resize the area. I haven't worked that much with rotating, but I believe that you can resize, yes, the whole clip. Awesome. I normally do that a slightly different way, but we chose resize there, and now I can move this smaller clip around. Anyway. So
can you add a movie inside of, can we have multiple clips
at the same time?
Resized and
yes.
then placed in the same area?
Yes, that's a little bit more complicated. That's compositing. You basically take a background of whatever you want. You can have it be a video, an image, whatever. Then you put more videos on other tracks above it, and you add the transition called composite. And then you can resize the clips at the top levels to whatever you want to. As an example, the videos that I make, at the very end of them, I have a black screen that has my latest 3 videos on it, and I will composite 1, 2, 3 over the 4th black background, and they all play at the same time. Let's see. So where do we go for here? Pan and zoom. That goes to the pan and zoom. You mentioned zooming and panning?
Cropping.
Cropping. Sorry. Crop is over here. Yes, there are all these different ones available. It's just a matter of trying them out and seeing how they work for you. But yeah, if I crop the top, it's going to cut the top of the video off, crop the left-hand side, the bottom, or the right. And you can automatically center it if you want to make sure the video stays centered. So, that will actually come in handy when we talk about compositing and chroma key later. Because the video that I made is against the green screen, but my green screen's not very large. That takes money, and you know, we work in the tech industry, there's no money there. So, alright, so we've got multiple clips. What else do we have? Sorry, I get multiple
Distracting you with all our questions.
it's not a big deal. I actually do a live stream on Ustream twice a week, and so I'm getting questions constantly there, but normally I'm just answering the questions. So, okay, so we talked about multiple clips, we talked about effects, let's talk about transitions. Now, if I wanted to go from this first video to the second, but not have that jerky, gross-looking thing that we have currently, you can take the second clip, move it just slightly back so that they overlap a little bit, and just click the corner. You see that little green flashing arrow that showed up? If I click that, it creates a transition for me, and the default one that it chooses is called dissolve, and it says dissolve from one to the next. Now, if I hit play, this might or might not work. My laptop is not terribly powerful, so we're going to try it. And it dissolves pretty smoothly from one clip to the next. So, yes, what's up? I heard something about what sort of processor we're running?
Hardware resources, how much is necessary?
What I'm running on currently is a Core 2 Duo, and it runs okay for some things. I'm doing 720p HD video, so it's going to be a little bit more resource intensive. I actually do most of my video editing on a quad-core AMD machine, and it runs very smoothly. How much memory? Memory actually isn't that big of a need. This one has 2 gigs of memory in it, and it never touches the majority of it. It's all CPU.
Does the rendering and everything support use all cores?
It's supposed to use as many cores as you tell it to. You have to actually go in and edit your rendering profiles. I've not had much luck getting that to work, and yeah, I mean, basically what you're supposed to do at that point, you go back into your render, hit the render button, choose whatever profile it is you want, make a copy of it by hitting the plus sign, and you see we can name it whatever we want, testing, and then at the very end you add random characters, you add in threads equals whatever you want, so however many cores you've got. If I have 2 on this one, for example, threads equals 2. My quad core, I would go threads equals 4. Hopefully that will work. Yes? Yes. Yeah, I've looked at it briefly, especially with regard to the cores thing, but not as much as I probably should have. Yeah, the majority of it, Kdenlive does so many things for you out of the box that just hitting MPEG 2 4000K gives you a very decent quality video pretty quickly. But yeah, I do agree, I need to be reading more of the FFmpeg documentation.
How high a quality video can you?
How high quality? I believe the built-in rendering profiles will go as high as 25,000K, which is 25 megabits per second. Most high-definition 1080p camcorders do 24 megabits a second at the highest. The one I just purchased, actually, 24 megabits is as high as it goes. And I did a lot of research. That was about as high as the AV high-definition standard goes. So, yeah, you shouldn't lose much quality on something like that.
Since you've got this really sweet head, Travis, can you give us a little bit more info about your preferred camera?
I'm sorry, I didn't...
Yes.
Since you've got this really great editor, can you tell us a little bit more about the camera you just bought?
Oh yes, the camera I just bought is the Canon Vixia HF21. I actually don't have any sample footage from that because my laptop here probably would not work. Actually, I take that back. The green screen footage is from that camera, but I think I rendered it down to 12 or 720. No, it's 1080. So yeah, if I were to play this video now, yeah, it's decent quality, and that was with no special lighting. That was just my basement. It was relatively inexpensive. It was sub $1,000. It does 1080i, 60 frames a second, that it interlaces down to de-interlaces down to 30 frames a second, or 24p cinematic mode. So the camera that I have used traditionally in the past, before buying this one, is actually that little one that is sitting in front of the gentleman in the front row. It's the Flip Ultra HD, very common. A lot of YouTubers use it. It does 720p video, 30 frames a second, and it's about 150 bucks. So, very easy to get into HD video work. If you use the right lighting, it makes a beautiful quality video. If you put it in a sort of dark room, not so good.
The raw footage that comes out of there, do you have to pre-process it?
The raw footage from the Flip? No. The raw footage from my Canon? Yes. For some reason, Kdenlive didn't want to work with it correctly. Gave a lot of audio errors, and the video went black. Not sure. I haven't had enough time to...
So you can do that in Linux?
Yes. Yes, using FFmpeg, using Memcoder, using Kdenlive will actually do it.
Okay.
As long as you don't make cuts to the video. Kdenlive works great to pre-process. And
There are some tricky file formats out there, such as the Patrocian format.
Scott, I've not actually dealt with. I believe it will accept it. I don't know if it will output it. I'm going to go ahead and say it probably doesn't. Well, I don't want to say that 100%. M2T, DB. Yeah, I'm going to say out of the box it probably doesn't. If FFmpeg will support it, you should be able to tell it to do it. Create a custom profile to do it.
So if I download the software to decode that,
To to decode the Matroska format. I don't believe it would automatically do it. If FFmpeg can do it, then it should do it. Yes. All right. Yes.
All the examples you had up there had the listing and then one right below that said 2-pass. What was a 2-pass?
Oh, 2pass, basically it does the first rendering, which just gives you a file. It takes the file and encodes it in whatever format you've given it. The second pass goes through and makes sure that everything is optimized appropriately. So it makes the encoding take twice as long, but it gives you a higher quality file, sometimes slightly larger file. So for the same bit rate, you can actually get a slightly higher quality encode. I haven't seen that make a difference personally, so I don't really use it. Because if you're making a video that's 15 minutes long, and it might take you a half an hour to render it, taking an hour instead, a lot longer. Any other?
What about sound? Sorry.
Go ahead. What about sound?
Sound, yeah. Can you edit the quality of the sound?
The quality, not a whole lot. That actually, we'll go ahead and just mention that over here. If I go over to my music, take some of this royalty-free music and add it in. Just drag in an MP3 file. You can drag in, I believe you can do FLAC and OGG, and actually, OGG maybe not. I had some issues with OGG and OGG video, excuse me, because for some reason Kdenlive didn't want to decode it properly. But if I just drag this MP3 in, you can go in and do any of these audio effects to it, fading in, fading out, adjusting the gain, adjusting the normalization, the pitch. The only thing that I haven't really been able to do with this is speed, and I've checked on their forums and everything. They have a speed plugin for video, but as soon as you change the speed from 100% to 101 or 99, the audio stops. It goes away. And that's, as far as they say, it's a limitation of Melt, which is the back-end framework which actually does all the processing.
My question is about sound too. I've got a video that the sound is about 5 seconds off from the video. With this program, can I adjust that?
Yes, you can. You would not be able to do it automatically, but I think I said something about this earlier. If you split the audio, just right-click and go to split. Right-click it a second time and say ungroup, because by default it keeps two clips connected. And I think actually it does not let you cut those clips once you've split the audio out. That's a bug that they fixed in a newer version that's coming out. But anyway, if I go ahead and ungroup that and then go down to the audio, you can manually adjust it to fit however you'd like. This can also be used in reverse. Like I said before, I used that flip for a very long time. The audio on that in my basement is not terribly good because it's a large area with a lot of acoustics. So I use a standalone microphone, and then I sync it up in post-production. So I can take the video from the camera, the audio from the microphone, overlay them, and just look for common points and have it synchronize the two. You mute the audio on the video, the microphone audio takes over.
When you do that, do you have trouble with the sound plays a little faster than the video and gets out of sync?
In versions of Ubuntu prior to 9.10, yes. Because I was capturing using a USB microphone, I think they've made some significant changes since then, and actually I was sort of slapped on the wrist earlier today and told that I should not be using Pulse Audio, and if anyone is trying to make videos, they really shouldn't be either. So, for the most part, Pulse Audio does work decently well with this, and does not have any significant amount of delay anymore. It used to. I don't know why, but it would just delay for a couple of seconds over the course of a video. With the newer versions of Ubuntu 9.10 and forward, and most other distros, it hasn't been a problem.
Can we clarify the odd video situation?
As far as I know, it's an issue with Kdenlive that I've looked on their forums and it doesn't look like they're in a huge hurry to fix it. So traditionally what I do, if I make a video using record my desktop, for example, it comes out in OGG video format every time. I immediately run that through FFmpeg or MinCoder to make an AVI, to make an MPEG file, anything like that, and then that will work within Kdenlive with no problem.
Go and edit your own audio track. Can you have it and the native audio playing simultaneously?
Yes. If you're doing, like I was talking about earlier, with your own mic and the mic from the camera, you can do that. It's going to sound kind of funny. But if, for example, well, let's just go back a couple of steps, and I've got music on top of this now. See, I've got the audio playing from the aquarium, and I also added a music track down here at the bottom that I just drug in. And if I hit play now, you probably can't hear it very well, but there is music playing on top of it. They do play simultaneously, and you can do that with several layers deep. Like I mentioned earlier, when I take the endings in my videos and put 3 videos on top of it, 9 times out of 10 I forget to mute them before I hit play. So I have 3 videos screaming at the same time with background music playing. So 4 audio streams all going, and yeah, it gets a little hectic. Yes?
Any support for subtitles?
Subtitles, I don't believe there's a way to do it easily. However, that does go to a point that I overlooked. If you come back to your project tree, you can right-click and go down to Add Title Clip, and once you're in there, you have just a basic image editor where you can put your titles on there. So, for example, if I wanted to create some text, we'll make it a little larger, easier to see. There we go. Okay, this is a test. Okay. That creates a file that is not going to be very easy to see right now. But if I drag that 5-second clip onto the video, it automatically composites it over whatever it is I've got under it, and now I've got text on top of the video. Not a terribly effective way to do it, but if you're editing the video anyway, it's another way to handle it. You can also you can also bring in things from images from GIMP and whatever else. So if you wanted to use pre-made subtitles, you could do that as long as they're images. Yes?
The music that you have on the bottom, can you adjust the volume down?
Yes. That would actually be what we were going over earlier a little bit. If you right-click on it, go to Audio Effect, you can either do a keyframeable volume. I haven't mentioned what a keyframe is yet, but you can do volume or gain. Normally 6 of one, half dozen of the other as to how they perform. So if I added the volume effect to it, for example, you see here at the beginning of the track, it's going to be at 100%. At the end, 251.17, it's 100%. You can set either one of those to whatever value you want, as low or as high. I think it'll go as high as 99.99 and as low as 0. Now, if you wanted to add different points throughout the video, you create what's called a keyframe. So right now, if I hit the plus symbol, that's going to create a keyframe at 1 minute 25 seconds. If I change the value there to, say, 50, there's a small line. It's a little difficult to see here, but it's a little white line. You'll notice that it kind of goes down and then back up. Yeah, down to this little point, this little blue point, and then back up. And you can click and drag that around to make it as high or as low as you want, at whatever point in the video you want. It's, yeah, keyframing is a little bit odd to get into. Basically, what a keyframe is a point in the video when something happens. So if you wanted to have 100% audio, and then for so many seconds have no audio, but you wanted to fade down to it, you would have a keyframe at the beginning, a keyframe when you wanted the change to start that was at 100%, a keyframe at the end of that change when you wanted it phased out. So, for example, we've got 1 minute 14 seconds at 200%. If I create another one, I think I can just, yeah, drag the position. There we go, see the little blue line moving? So if I wanted to go back to 100%, click it and drag it around, and wherever you want it to be, it will deal with that for you. And it does a gradual movement through that if you do it that way. Sorry, I thought I saw, yes.
Is there an envelope tool for the volume instead of strictly doing
I don't believe there is. However, if you wanted to edit your audio beforehand using something like Audacity and bring that in, that works. Actually, the audio that I incorporated in my videos using the flip, I brought in from Audacity. You just export it as a WAV or an MP3 or whatever format you're comfortable with, and this will probably accept it. Okay, so that is transition. But yeah, we talked briefly about transitions, but that sort of brings us to the final, one of the most important transitions that I use. Yes?
Just a curiosity about your microphones. What format do you get out of it?
What format do I get? It all depends on what application you're capturing with. I use a USB microphone. I use a blue microphone's Snowball. It's this big giant white ball microphone. Hooks up through USB 2.0. It's about 2-channel, 44 kilohertz. Correct me if I'm wrong there. But I take it into Audacity at wave is the output that I normally use, just because the MP3 didn't sound particularly good. So anyway, at this point it's probably beneficial just to go ahead and talk about compositing. We did mention it briefly here with the text, but you can put whatever it is you want to over top of that. For example, if I wanted to put my logo over top of this, I would just drag it down, make sure it's on a video line above the video you want to superimpose it on. So here we've got blackness now. Now what I pulled in was a ping file that has transparency built into it. So if I go ahead and add a transition here, that was probably not the best way to do it because it's not terribly obvious. If you right click and go to add transition, select composite this time instead of dissolve, it composites your whatever it is you've got over top of it. Now the image that I've got here is not the right format, so it's not going to match up 100%. So if I come into the composite transition, you see this this effect that it added to it, only added it for a certain amount of time, but if you click and drag on that transition, it will extend the length of it. It does snapping, so you can just snap it to the end of it and it will stay with it from then on. So if I drag out the length of this now, the composite transition goes along with it. So now that I've got this here, if I wanted it to be smaller, for example, click on this little cog. Oh, to get there, by the way, I clicked on the composite transition. It takes us to the transition tab for that particular one. And now if you move the little red box around, it moves the item itself around. And video doesn't update for some reason. There we go. Now if I wanted this smaller, because that's kind of big and obnoxious over top of a video, you can click on the little cog, go to resize, and tell it whatever size you want. 50, 100, 200, or custom. So if I wanted it 35%, it will make it 35% of the original size. At that point, if I wanted to move it around, I can just click it and drag it. You can add keyframes to this, like we were talking about earlier. Just select a point within this timeline. You see every time I click, it updates at the bottom. Click the add button and add another keyframe. You can change the position between those. You can change opacity. You can all sorts of fun things. So if I wanted it to be 35% opaque there, let's start at the beginning, and then we'll watch as it moves. Okay, you can stop playing. There we go. Take that audio out because it's a little loud. Yes. Yeah, that's exactly how you would do that. Yeah, if for example, I wanted to take this image and composite it over the whole of the video, instead of using the keyframes to tell it to move around, I can delete that back out. Or delete out the original one. Sorry, this touchpad is not wanting to respond. There we go. So, back at the beginning, I've got this. I can move the image itself around. If I wanted to put it in the bottom corner, for example, just drag it around. It moves whatever's on top to wherever you've positioned it. And you see we've got it in the corner there. It's somewhat opaque, kind of a watermark. If you had an image that was text, for example, and you wanted to make it over the entire of the video, you could have it sit in the center, have it be a certain amount opaque so that it wouldn't show up and block everything out. You could change the rotation of it with one of those video rotation effects that we looked at earlier. There's a lot of different things that, if you combine them correctly, you can have some really nice effects. I thought I saw somebody else's.
It looks like I ought to be able to create a slideshow with this on JPEG.
Absolutely.
Does it have something called the Ken Burns effect? To pan and zoom on slides?
It does not have a specific Ken Burns effect, but that could be accomplished using composite. Like we just looked at, if you put a keyframe into this composite and tell it where you want it to be and what size you want it to be, it will make the adjustments to get you from here to there. So, for example, if I put a keyframe here, and I say that I want it to be 100% and full opacity and center. Yeah. So by the time by the way, that's not centered because the source file is not the full size of the image. If I made it 1280 by 720, it would very easily work with that little block, but it doesn't want to otherwise. So, for the beginning of this one, the first keyframe, it was 35%, somewhere in the middle, 35% opacity. If I play, though, it will grow and change and pan and zoom. And yeah. A lot of the additional effects, like panning and zooming and rotating and things like that, can be, well, rotating, no, panning and zooming can be accomplished using composite. And much in the same way, like we mentioned earlier, if you wanted to have multiple things on top, you could just add another video layer to this. Let's just do that. Insert track. By the way, to insert a track of any type, right-click on any track, go to Insert Track, tell it where you want it before or after, track whatever, tell it what type you want, hit OK, and it just inserts it for you. At that point, you can put whatever you want to on that track. You can have it as complicated or as not complicated as you want. And you'll see there it went back to that black. It's covering everything. We have to right-click and add a composite transition again. And this is where it gets a little bit fuzzy, but not too bad. If you make it angry. Okay, so at this point, you're not wanting to composite the top one over the second layer, because that's what it's automatically going to try to do. You want to composite it over the very base layer, whatever the bottom one is that you're trying to have everything on top of. At that point, you go up here, composite with track whatever. In this case, it's going to be track 2. You'll see the numbering there. So we will select 2, and then we've got 2 large. Sorry, moving things around. There we go. So now if we watch that section, I've composited 2 separate images over top of it. Yeah. So that could similarly be done with 2 different video clips, with 2 different images, with, can't imagine what else you'd want to try to display, but if there were something else, that would probably work. Yes.
Is there a multi-camera feature?
No, that's one of the biggest things that is missing in Kdenlive, that some of the professional paid editors for other OSs do have. I seem to remember them saying something about it on their forum, but has not been implemented yet.
We didn't hear the question.
Oh, is there a multi-camera feature? There's not, but it would be possible, theoretically possible to do just manually, but manually that's going to be kind of a difficult process, synchronizing, and I think I was talking to someone earlier about that, synchronizing of multiple cameras. Yes?
You link that image up with track 2. If you go back and add in a new track before track 0, does it automatically...
I believe so, but let's go ahead and just check and see what happens. Go to Insert Track before track 0. Let's check the composite. It updated it to track 3, so it's smarter than I expected. So now if I wanted to take this video, for example, this is a separate video, one that I had earlier. I'm going to go through the clip monitor. I'm going to select a small section of it using the start and end arrows that we talked about briefly earlier. And this is kind of fun. I don't know how cool you think it is or not, but if you click on the video now, the clip video, you can drag just that section of it down and add just a part of it in the actual video itself. I like that. I do that a lot, actually. Yeah, now I've used the wrong type of transition, so I'm going to select composite instead. I'm going to composite over track 3, and just to make this easier to see, I'm going to resize it down to, let's say, 40%. And line up with center by hand. So now, when you're watching this video, there we go. We've got 2 images overlaying each other with video on top of it. And if I hit play, it's going to be something obnoxious. Yeah, and my system is, like I said, not terribly powerful, so it tries. On a more powerful system, it will do it a little bit better. Let's see, that is compositing. We've talked about effects. We've talked about transitioning briefly. There are other types of transitions like wipes. If any of you have ever watched a video from the 80s or early 90s where you're at the end of a clip and you see the little star transition, or you see the wipe from one side to the other, those are kind of obnoxious, but they are available. There are wipes pre-installed. There's let's just come over here and select wipe. I select the composite. There we go. And there's all these different image files that it can base it off of. Lots of different ones. Let's just see what happens if I select one. Not something I use terribly often because, like I said, it's kind of obnoxious. And there we go, it wipes to this next video. It is an option, and if you come up here to the top and go to Settings and download new wipes, there are more available. I'm not on the wireless, so I can't really do that. You've also got the ability to download new render profiles and new project profiles, so you can use different types of video. And actually, whoever asked about Matroska earlier, that may be the place to go to ask about it, because I seem to remember there being something about Matroska in there. But the last thing to mention, and just something that I think is kind of cool, is the chroma key plugin, the green screen plugin, blue screen plugin, whatever they want to call it nowadays. Now, if you want to take the compositing things that you've already done and introduce another layer, and then take a video and put it on top of it. I'm going to mute this one just because I don't want to hear myself speaking on it. So I'm going to add the composite transition to it. I have to select that transition. I'm not sure why it does that, but it falls behind the video. Anyway, composite it over track 4. And now you should see, yes, me in front of the green screen. If I go up to video effect and tell it to crop, I can select the crop effect. I can crop out some of the left. Tell it to center some of the right. For some reason it's not centering. Play. Well, one way or another, there's a lot of stuff going on, so we'll just go ahead and add another effect, and this is the key one to make this work, the blue screen plugin. Now you see that didn't exactly work because it's trying to find blue. If you hit that, select this effect, the blue screen effect, go to the color key, and this is exactly what the color you're trying to get rid of. Hit your little dropper button, which is common to a lot of Linux apps, and go as close to the subject as possible. Then you cross your fingers, and if it works, you're live in demonstration. And you see you change the variance a little bit to adjust, but it does work for the most part. If you don't have too many things going on to confuse it, actually, let's just delete a couple of these.
Composite
People
going.
get angry very quickly. So I'll just click on these and hit the delete button, and they all start going away. There we go. So now I've taken myself and very roughly, like I said, I didn't make this video with any real lighting, just the fluorescence overhead. But I was able to take it and superimpose myself on fish. It would be helpful if you're a weather forecaster doing amateur videos on YouTube. Yeah, so at this point, if I start playing the video, yeah, it works. I mean, it all depends on your camera at that point, your lighting, your layout, how far you are from the green screen. The one problem with that plugin is it doesn't have the ability to blur, so the corners can sometimes be a little rough. Yes?
I tried using Kdenlive a year and a half, 2 years ago, and it seemed pretty buggy. Have you found it's gotten better?
From the time that I've used it, it's gotten better. I started using it when it was on version 0.7.5, I think, and they've gone up to major releases, and they're about to do another one. So it has gotten significantly better. They do appear to be paying attention to what the community wants, and it's growing, it's changing. The new version that's actually coming out has a lot more color profiling information in it. It's got the ability to look at the video histograms to see, how much of each color, how exposed or overexposed or underexposed the video is. And that's just because somebody said, we really need to add this effect to it, this ability to it, so that people can find out exactly what's going on with their videos. There are a load of other new things they've added to it that I haven't had the time to go through everything yet, but yeah, overall, Kdenlive has a load of available plugins for it, available transitions and wipes, and basically if you know the correct way to add it all together, you can come out with a very professional looking video with a minimal amount of effort, and I hope that you make great videos with it. Any questions? Yeah.
A typical problem with video editing is that a lot of the codecs are not very good at being random access. Is there a particular video format that this tool is better at using as a source so that it's smoother, more random access as you're working with it?
I would say that depends a lot on your processor. Like we see here, the processor I'm using, it's a Core 2 Duo, it's a couple of years old. It works okay with high definition video. And I'm just using, which one is this even? MP4, MPEG 2, things like that. And that said, AVI is using H.264, MPEG 2, MPEG 4, all those traditional mainstream style codecs work very decently with this.
Actually, like in Final Cut Studio, I think one of the preferred video formats would be the intermediate codec, which is not compressed at all, so that the tool is more, real-time responsive when you're random accessing the video.
I have used completely uncompressed video, and I didn't notice it work any better or any worse.
Okay.
So it may just be something about the way that Kdenlive runs differently. The performance has been pretty decent on, as long as you put decent hardware behind it. And that can be said about a lot of things. Any other? Yes.
I've worked a decent bit with just non-encrypted DVD content, like from camcorders and stuff, where people have done that and then burned it to a disk, and other people have wanted me to take stuff off or do this kind of work on it. And a lot of the video editors I've tried to bring that stuff into, I've usually had to run through and encode into like an MP4 file or something first before I could play with it. Does Kdenlive work with just...
With BOB files?
Yeah.
I've never tried that, but I would believe it should.
Okay.
I don't know. It's definitely worth a shot. If you, I can test that if you'd like and get back.
That's all right.
Is there a feature to actually allow you to capture video instead of working with general video files?
Yes, and I've not had a terrible amount of luck with it. That's actually the tab I didn't cover, pretty much for that reason, the record monitor. If you come into the record monitor here at the center, you've got three different options. You can capture from FireWire, which I've never owned a FireWire camera because I have no money. You can capture from Video for Linux, which is using your webcam, or you can do a screen grab. The screen grab uses Record My Desktop. Actually, if you just come in here and hit the little wrench button, it will tell you what the different profiles are and what they do. Your default capture is going to be FireWire, and this is exactly how it's going to work. If you select Video for Linux, for some reason, tabs. Video for Linux will actually pull from whatever video device it finds using the Video for Linux 2 format. You can set the different quality formats in here. 320x240 is the default. For some reason, it's kind of outdated, but if it works. Yes, like I said, I haven't had a terrible amount of luck doing that. If I'm capturing from a webcam, I would generally use a program like GUVC View. If you've not heard about that, it's a terribly wonderful program. I keep it installed on every one of my machines, and usually it works, but the webcam on this is mediocre at best. Yeah, GUVC View will allow you to capture from that. I assume you mean maybe from a FireWire instead? Or?
I've worked with USB hookups, I've worked with setting up two mini DV tape decks, things like that. And I think that's typically FireWire.
If it's FireWire, this should be able to do it. Not something I've had the ability to do yet. Okay. Anybody else? All right. Well, thank you for coming. I will be here for a little while. YouTube.com/thisweekinlinux.